My girlfriend is upset with me because I don't do 50% of the housework. How do we find a reasonable compromise? When we first met, she made it fairly clear that she expected me, as a man, to be a provider. And as we continued dating for a while, her expectations were in line with me assuming a very traditional gender role. I was fine with this. I've built a fairly successful career and pay roughly 90% of our combined communal bills on a $320K salary while she makes $40K. I do all the maintenance for our cars, the boat, and all the yard work. It's been about 2 years of living together, and up until now I felt things were going well. She has recently started complaining that I'm not carrying my weight around the house. I don't do any of the cooking, do very little of the cleaning, and don't do the laundry. I felt our division of labour was fairly well established. I do all the traditional male work and pay the bills, and she maintains the homestead. But if I still have to do half of the housework while almost entirely carrying the financial burden and the yard work, then her contribution would be far less than mine. I've also recently mentioned that when we have kids, I would prefer to have them homeschooled since she's going to be a stay-at-home mom anyway. She wasn't very receptive to the idea, since she wants to have daytime hobbies while she's still a stay-at-home mom. This didn't make any sense to me. Stay at home doesn't imply using the free time to pursue hobbies. It's meant to tend to the house and the kids. Edit. This keeps being asked, so I'll answer. I work almost 70 hours a week and she works around 25. I've literally started having panic attacks between the demands at work and getting home to being antagonized. I've had to pull over on the side of the road several times in the last month. The last 48 hours have been really eventful, and while I'm still processing all that's happened, I figured posting would help me gain some mental clarity. The night after posting here, I decided to just have a frank discussion with her and figure out how we can divide our responsibilities fairly. I first laid out the math. I work roughly 70-hour weeks and have an hour commute 6 days a week. Another hour spent on getting ready for work, and another hour is spent at the gym or jogging. I typically then spend 3-4 hours on average per weekend working on outdoor projects or indoor repairs. Some weekends are more eventful than others, but I felt this was a fair estimate. I explained that this leaves me with an average of less than 3 hours a day to just live. As she already knows, most days I wake up, get ready for work, leave, and within an hour of getting back, I head to bed. I'm not a messy person and generally pick up after myself. Since I'm barely home, if I start doing 50% of the housework, I'd practically be cleaning up after her and her 2 dogs. She was resolute about having me contribute 50% to the housework and kept mentioning that the idea of me doing less housework made her uncomfortable. Eventually, we settled at just having a maid come in twice a week. We had been drinking while having this discussion and continued after we decided on the maid. We were quite a bit more drunk when she mentioned for the first time ever that she had around $15K in credit card debt from before we met that she wanted me clear up before we got married. It just kind of hit me like lightning at that point. This relationship makes life easier for her, but makes life harder for me. Before we met, I was content in my apartment 5-10 minutes walking distance from work with my 2015 Corolla and basic furniture. Since then, I've bought a house she wanted, near the water, which I'm not a fan of, a boat she wanted, with a pool I didn't want, thousands spent on furniture she wanted, and a BMW I didn't want. I even got her a job at my company so she could earn as much as she did before, but only work 25-hour weeks. When we woke up yesterday, I called off work and I just told her that this relationship wasn't going to work. I just explained to her that my life wasn't getting easier or happier, just the opposite. She was really keen on arguing and eventually even said she no longer wanted the maid, but I didn't really budge. She left around noon with her dogs, and I assume she went to her parents' house since I started getting calls from them. I didn't really have the energy to respond, so I just ignored them. I'm not exactly sure when she'll do so, but I hope she'll be able to collect her things in the next few weeks. She can keep working at my company for a couple more months until she finds something more suitable.
I'm really hoping that you're actually asking here and not just looking for validation, so I'm going to offer a real answer. You work full-time. She works part-time. I don't know how many hours you work, but let's just say you work 60 a week and she works 20. That means that while you are at work, your job for those 60 hours is your job. Her job is 20 hours at her workplace and 40 hours of caring for the home, children, should you be so fortunate, etc., while you are unavailable at your job. It's fair to expect her to put in effort similar to yours, while yours is mostly outside of the home and hers is in it. But the remainder of the time, when you are both off the clock, you are both equally responsible for the household. The household work that is her job while you aren't there doesn't somehow become her sole responsibility 24/7. You will create resentment in her if you believe that, which seems to be what's happening. You're basically asking her to put in a much longer work week than you otherwise, and once you add kids to the mix, that's an exhausting struggle that will burn the life out of anyone going it alone while their partner is home and relaxing. By the way, homeschooling is a perfectly fine preference for you to have, but it is a discussion, not a demand. Salary is immaterial here, because you could have begun and maintained such an arrangement at any income level. It's awesome that you've done well, but you could also be asking this question while making, say, 80K. What is the issue here is time. Salary really goes towards standard of living, and not the elimination of any household chores, unless you use some of that salary to hire household help as your contribution to the running of the home, which you could offer to do here. What I think is getting lost in a lot of these replies is the relationship. You did not use your salary to hire your wife. You entered into a partnership with her, where your goal should be for both of you to be treated with equal respect and value. That means if she is unhappy right now, you don't just dismiss those feelings as unwarranted. You communicate to find out why she's feeling them and work together to create a mutual solution or reasonable compromise. Think about what needs to be done around the house while you're off work and take on some of those tasks. Offer to be responsible for dinner one night a week. Make sure you don't expect her to learn how to parent all by herself when the time comes. While you're there, get in the trenches with her. Take time to relax and do the things that make you happy, and make sure she gets to as well. Remember that you're not taking things off her plate. You're doing the things that need to be done for your shared home, because you live there too. And please, please, please work this out before you have kids.
Her being a stay-at-home mom shouldn't be the only reason for you to decide on homeschooling. Both of you should come together to make an educated decision about homeschooling, a decision that should be about what's best for the kids and not about how much you want your wife to stay in your house and have no life of her own. She is allowed to have a personal life, hobbies of her own. Unlike you, a stay-at-home mom doesn't have fixed hours. It's not free time. If your kids get sick in the middle of the night, who do you think will be expected to wake up to tend to them? That being said, you should help around the house whenever you can. However, if she is expecting you to take over a bigger portion of the housework, talk it out with her. You guys are not yet married. If you have concerns about finances, call it off now before it is too late.
And she is expecting him to work 70 hours a week and do half the chores, while she works 25 hours a week. She's a leech. Why is it acceptable for women to behave like this? Why isn't this behavior considered abuse? He is working himself into an early grave, and she is sitting there adding to it. And then after all this, when they start having children, and she becomes a stay-at-home mom, she wasn't even planning on actually raising the children. Was she expecting him to look after them while the hobbies? This behavior is unacceptable and disgusting, and I can't believe how many women defend it.
It sounds like she expects to be your trophy wife. If that idea is amenable to you, consider hiring a maid on a weekly basis for deep cleaning. That way, all she has to manage is the day-to-day upkeep.
Yeah, I'm also confused. I thought at first OP was paying for everything, but it doesn't sound like that. He does 90% of the communal bills, meaning she has to work to pay all her own bills, like her car, student loans, personal credit card, etc. If he was paying for all of her bills or giving her an allowance, I think that's totally fair to expect her to do all of the housework. But she's working a full-time job and he's not even paying 100% of the communal bills. Seems fishy to me.
I'd advise absolutely no partner or any gender to be totally stay-at-home without some legal means to recoup the money they're losing. Not working, not having their own insurance, retirement contributions, etc. Unemployed girlfriend who does all the housework is a real shitty position to be in. The earning partner has unfair leverage, controls the house, any optional spending. It's fine to want a trad relationship, but those come with the legal security of a wedding and the at-home spouse getting financial safety nets and survivor benefits.
Totally agree. My thought was that OP doesn't seem to understand the meaning of time. They both work roughly the same number of hours, even if he is working insanely long hours. He doesn't mention that. But she has hours more work to do. If he is doing zero around the house, not even a load of laundry now and then, or participating in joint cooking or kitchen cleanup, then there's no way this is equitable. There seems to be a theme among the traditional roles men that their manly endeavors are the things that need to be done once in a while or once or twice a week, while not comprehending that the women's roles are all day, every day, and more if there are kids.
I tell her to keep working and then hire a cleaning service. Take turns cooking.
What you have here, my good man, is a cherry picker. The responses to you have been wild. She is the problem here.
The white knights in this comment section are astounding. You make the majority of household income by a wide margin, are expected to pay the bills, and now you're expected to do household chores. If she wants you to take on the stereotypical and traditional gender roles that men have, then she should be expected to take care of the house. This is a her having cake and eating it too type of relationship.
Break up before she becomes a pitfall in your life. You'll be pissed off, annoyed, frustrated, agitated, angry, and a host of other emotions and feelings connected to those. You'll be anything but happy. She's not a fiancé, and more is she a wife. You make too much money to be compromising.